Hey y'all, I'm Lauren. Welcome to Jedi Novel Archive. This is another reminder about the fact that I am soon going to be moving to Cantina Cast. I even wore my Cantina Cast hoodie today to remind y'all to go subscribe to Cantina Cast if you haven't already. I recently posted an announcement video stating some more details about the fact that my channel is going to be moving to Cantina Cast. So this is just another quick reminder that if you haven't subscribed to Cantina Cast yet, go ahead and do so, because pretty soon I will no longer be posting videos on my original channel. They're all going to be on Cantina Cast. If you're watching this video on Cantina Cast YouTube channel, then awesome. Thank you so much for subscribing and for checking out my content in its new home. So today I'm going to be reviewing Quest for the Hidden City by George Mann. So I gotta say, this is my favorite novel from phase 2 so far. First, I'm gonna get into my kind of overall thoughts and some positive things that I have to say about the book without giving any spoilers. Then I'll give like a very brief summary, which is basically just going to be a rewording of the blurb on the back of the book. And then after that, I'll have a spoiler tag, and then I'll get really into the spoilers on this one. So first off, I gotta say, I absolutely loved this book. It is a middle grade book, so it is shorter. As you can see here, like it's formatted like a middle grade book. So you would probably get through this one pretty quickly. Middle grade is usually like the target audience of middle grade is usually middle school. So that's younger than YA. However, even if you're not a middle grade person, you can still really enjoy this book a lot. I loved this book a lot. The main thing to just keep in mind is that because it's a middle grade book, it is going to be shorter. We don't have as much time to get like super deep into the themes because it's a shorter read. But if you're looking for like just a fun read that's just a good old time, then this book is definitely going to do that for you. The reason that it is my favorite novel from phase 2 so far is because this is really what I wanted to see from High Republic. When High Republic was first announced, this is the kind of stuff that I was hoping that we would see. What we're seeing in this book, we saw some of this stuff in phase 1 too, so this isn't the first time that we've seen this kind of thing in High Republic, but I do feel like it's the first time in phase 2 that we're really getting a story quite like this. What I love about it is we are seeing the Jedi do what they do best, being effective at it, getting in there, helping people, being successful in what they're doing, and just being all around cool. I mean, honestly, that's really what it is. We don't really have Jedi bashing in this book. The people in this book are happy to have the Jedi's help. We have the Jedi really being successful in their methods that they're using to try to help the people that they're helping. We have some awesome Jedi characters, particularly Salandra. She is one of my favorite Jedi from High Republic, period. We are seeing a healthy master and apprentice relationship, and we know that that is saying something. We don't get the rug ripped out from under us. We don't get like our favorite character dying at the end. We're just having a good old time. I know that one thing that's really popular, like in our culture right now, is a lot of books and TV shows having a lot of twists and turns to try to keep people engaged. And that's just like a trend across lots of media that we're seeing. This book, it doesn't rely on ripping the rug out from under you to try to keep you engaged. And I personally really appreciate that, because that's just something that's more in line with my personal taste as a reader. I like it when I can tell, like, this is where the story's going, this is what we're working toward. That just makes me have like a better reading experience when I feel that way. So that's why this one I think just really, really worked for me. I gotta say, like, even though this book, it's not hitting you with any like big out of nowhere punches, but it's not like the Jedi are just invincible either. There are some issues that they still run into and some things that they have to work through. And even though this book is a short read, we're still getting to see some examples of some obstacles that they're having to deal with. Okay, a very bare bones summary of this book with no spoilers is that a Pathfinder droid, which is drifting through space, that was sent off like as a call for help, is found. It was sent off by a Jedi who is calling for help because his Pathfinder team that previously went to this planet ended up getting into a lot of trouble. Now the people who have recovered the droid, they send another pathfinding team to try to go help the first team that ended up getting into trouble. Meanwhile, while that's happening, we also have two other characters who are stranded on the same planet, completely unrelated to the Pathfinder team, but their stories are going to intersect as the book goes on. So it's the story of Solandra and Rupert, that's Solandra's Padawan. They're trying to track down the first Pathfinder team that went missing, and then we also have Das and Spence, who are a father and son that are also trapped on the planet, and they're trying to get off planet. But now at this point, I am going to get into like a more detailed summary of the book, and I'm going to talk about spoilers. So now is the time that if you don't want spoilers, turn back now. This is your last warning. Okay, so as I already mentioned, there is this droid that is found that was just floating through space on its own. Master Rock Burin. Please excuse my pronunciation. I didn't listen to the audiobook for this one, and I feel like I'm not confident in how I'm saying that name. But so he sent it off. It's his voice in the recording that's found on the droid, and he's saying something about how they were ambushed, and it keeps cutting in and out, and you can't really get any details from what he's saying. But the people that recover the droid, they end up getting another Pathfinder team together, and on that Pathfinder team are Jedi Knight Solandra Show, and also her Padawan Rupert. They're going to the original planet that this Pathfinder team was supposed to be on, which is called Obatus. Obatus? Again, oh my gosh, these planet names are absolutely killing me, y'all. That's where they were supposed to be, and they're gonna go help them. Okay, anyway, so Rupert is in a position where she's kind of like, she felt like that when her and her master Solandra first went to the Outer Rim to kind of like explore the frontier, she was expecting a lot of excitement and like they were going to be doing a bunch of crazy stuff, and that's really like hasn't really been living up to Rupert's expectations so far. Solandra just wants her to focus on lightsaber drills and meditation and stuff like that. And it kind of reminded me of when I read Padawan earlier this year. It reminded me of how Obi-Wan felt, kind of similar, but the difference is that Rupert isn't like frustrated with Solandra about it. There seems to be a lot more trust in that master and apprentice relationship, which is nice to see. Solandra is so cool. So her thing that she does is so in addition to using her lightsaber, she also has a shield. It's like a plasma shield. And when she activates it, it's almost like it does the same like energy type of thing that a lightsaber does, but it's a shield, so it deflects stuff. I just thought that sounded so cool. Like, see, I mean, y'all can probably tell that just like seeing the Jedi do cool stuff, like, I mean, that's just what has got me so excited about this book. The reason that she uses the shield is because she feels like as a Jedi, it's more of her like duty is about defending, not just about like attacking and fighting. It's more about like protecting people. And so that's kind of like what Solandra's shield represents. And so because of that, she uses the shield a lot more often than the lightsaber, and she only uses the lightsaber when she absolutely has to. She also understands that there are times that you have to like, there are some times that you might have to attack, like only attack when you have to, don't overdo it, but sometimes you're going to have to. And Solandra has like a really good grasp of like the balance between those two things. And that's one reason why I just loved her in this book, and I just loved everything she did. And Solandra and Rupert seem like they just have like the greatest master and apprentice relationship, even though there are times that Rupert, like kind of like I was mentioning earlier, where Rupert was like frustrated that Solandra just wanted her to do like lightsaber drills and meditation all the time, but you can tell that Rupert still really trusts her. And the other cool thing about this is that you can tell that Solandra also really trusts Rupert. So the trust goes both ways. Like it's very much a two-way street in their relationship. Solandra is encouraging Rupert to use her strengths, and even when Rupert isn't like super confident in her abilities or like in how well she's doing something, Solandra just really encourages her. She trusts her Padawan that if Rupert says, hey, like I feel this in the Force, Solandra just takes her word for it. Because of that, they just seem to have like a really great bond, and you can see like because Solandra is supporting Rupert throughout this book, you can see that is helping Rupert grow as a Padawan. Okay, so once the Jedi arrive, they meet some of the locals who are a species called Cattycoot. And they meet a few of them there, and the locals take them to their underground city, and they kind of explain to the Jedi a little bit of what happened with the last Pathfinder team. The way that it all started is the reason that they asked for help from the Republic is because they needed a new energy source. Their original energy source was these minerals that were mined on their neighboring planet called Gloam. And mining those minerals and using them, what it did is it eventually just totally killed the planet. They ended up having to move over to the planet that they're now on, the one that I don't want to say the name of because I'm pretty sure I'm saying it wrong. The Jedi, the reason that they went back to Gloam is because when they're trying to transition to the new energy source, they were like, okay, well, we need a little bit of the old minerals, even though they suck and they're bad. We need a little bit of them just to get you by until you're ready to transition. And so because of that, that's why the Jedi went back to Gloam to do that. And so when they were on Gloam, that's when they ended up running into trouble. And the reason that the Jedi went to Gloam instead of just like a normal like mining team to take care of this is because of those monsters that people were saying were there. So the Jedi had to go and like investigate the whole monster situation. So that way the Catty-Coot would be able to resume like the little bit of mining that they had to do until they were ready to transition. It becomes clear pretty early on that this situation must be more complicated than just monsters got the pathfinding team, because Master Roke, who was like the main Jedi, the main Jedi master that was heading the team, he is very skilled. He's been in the frontier for a while. He's seen a lot go down. It's unusual for him to be caught off guard. And so something already really doesn't seem right in this situation. And so now it's like they're just trying to figure out what that is. Now, this new pathfinding team with Solandra and Rupert, they're all going to Gloam to try to find him. After this, we shift gears and we meet Das and Spencer, who are the father and son that are trapped on Gloam. They ended up getting stranded there in a completely unrelated situation. They are hyperspace prospectors. And so they've been there for several days now trying to build a distress beacon to get off planet. They do every now and then have encounters with these monsters, and they've tried to adjust their living space, if you can even call it that, to where, like, because the monsters mostly come out at night, they try to like stay in their like little cave thing all night, and they have it barricaded and stuff like that. And so at this point, they're just like barely hanging on by a thread. They are not doing well. But their one hope that they have is this beacon that they're building. Well, unfortunately, what happens is that the monsters have figured out that Das and Spencer are out during the daytime. And so the monsters come out during the daytime and attack them when they're completely not expecting it. And so Das and Spencer have to drop everything they're doing and run back to the cave. And when they're doing all that, they accidentally leave the beacon behind. And so they're sitting there in that cave, the beacon's out there, and they're just like, oh, well, what are we going to do now? You know, now we're stuck in here. The monsters are outside waiting for us, and our beacon's not even in here with us. Several hours later, Das, he's the son, Spence is the father, Das is the son. He runs out there, like just makes a run for it, grabs the beacon, runs back inside, almost gets caught, but is able to get back inside the cave. And thankfully, the beacon is still intact. And their beacon does end up working because the new Pathfinder team, which has now made it to Gloam, they end up getting a signal that there's somebody in distress. And so because of that, the teams end up splitting up. Solandra and Rupert, they go to find Master Roke, and Dietrich, who is the pilot of the pathfinding team, and Milik, who is one of the Catty-Coot, they end up going to find whoever sent the distress signal. So they're going to look for Das and Spencer. And then we have two other members of the pathfinding team are staying with the ship, along with Rillick, who is another Catty-Coot who is also on the ship now. So they split up into three groups, and throughout the book, we're kind of bouncing back and forth between these three groups and what's going on between all of them. And then eventually, you know, at the end of the book, they're all going to intersect again. Once they split up, you can just tell, like, pretty quickly that Rillick is up to something. So it sounds like Rillick he's one of the Catty-Coot. Rillick had something to do with what happened with the original Pathfinder team. We don't find out what until much later, but you can tell pretty early on that he was involved in some way. After they all split up, there's a moment where Solandra and Rupert are going and looking for Master Roke, and they end up encountering these predatory beasts. Not the monsters. These are like actual animals that are just that want to eat them like for a meal. I mean, once again, I love the way that Solandra handles the situation. It is just the coolest thing ever. She takes her shield off and ends up like, because these beasts are trying to eat them, you know, so she takes her shield off and like throws it and like hits them in the head like with her shield. And like it doesn't hurt them like in a serious way, but like it hurts them enough to where they run off and leave them alone. And I love it because at the end, Rupert's like, that was incredible. And Solandra's like, it was necessary. Oh, she's just so cool. She's just so cool. Literally, Solandra like carried this book for me. I want to see her in more. I want to see her in more stuff because she was just awesome. Shortly after that, Solandra and Rupert, they do find an ancient ruined Jedi temple, and they actually do find Master Roke there. And Roke tells them that what happened is that they were attacked by the monsters. They were ambushed. It sounds like they were led into a trap, which that's explained a little bit more later on. And unfortunately, the whole rest of the team, other than Master Roke, were all killed by the monsters, including Roke's Padawan. And in this scene, while this is being explained, there is a really good part that explains kind of how the Jedi are meant to deal with loss. And in this example, we do have Rupert kind of like making sense of what Master Roke is saying. And she thinks to herself, Jedi were taught to deal with loss, but that didn't mean they didn't feel it. And so that's kind of like, I feel like that just explains it really well in just like a simple way, which is the non-attachment and the way that Jedi either are meant to grieve or not grieve, and that whole mess that we see play out in different ways in different examples. It's really just as simple as that. Like, you're meant to deal with the emotions. Don't hold on to something or someone so much that when you lose it, you completely lose yourself and lose all sense of, you know, your place in the world and all of that. But like, you're still gonna feel it when you lose someone, and that's okay. It's not supposed to just be like, oh, it's fine, just whatever. I really appreciated how we do see an example of a Jedi who understands that concept without like overdoing it or you know, not taking it seriously. She understands the concept, and it sounds like it's like a much more like reasonable grasp of what that's supposed to look like. In the conversation, Roke continues to explain how the monsters, what they are is they're pretty much zombies. The sickness that the miners get from being around the minerals so much, it sounds like what that sickness ultimately does is it makes them become zombies. Like, it sounds like it's like they almost become rabid in a way. Their mind is completely taken over and they just want to kill everyone that they encounter. And so it sounds like these monsters that we've been hearing about all this time, what it actually is old miners from the past who have gotten this sickness and ended up completely descending into madness from it, and then like becoming bloodthirsty, really. When we switch points of view and we go back to the people who stayed with the ship with Rillick, who is the one who's behind all of this, really, we find out that he was the one who sabotaged the first pathfinding team. He ends up admitting that the reason that he did it is because he wanted to continue using the old minerals because of the money opportunity that they offered. We also find out that he is also sick from the disease that the miners get. And over the course of the book, he's getting sicker and sicker. And so, I mean, you can tell where that's going. At the same time that all this is going on, Dietrich, Das, Spencer, and Millick, they are all going to try to find Solandra and Rupert because they haven't heard from him in a while. A long time has passed and they're worried. So they go looking for them. Once Dietrich's and Millick locate Das and Spencer, they end up learning that the way that they ended up on the planet is because they were working with Sunshine Dobbs, who was briefly mentioned in Path of Deceit. And he was briefly mentioned, but he wasn't really like a big character. He's literally, I think it's like one scene that he's mentioned in. But anyway, so they were working with him. He ended up leaving them on Gloam and like ditching them there to get all of the profits from the hyperspace prospecting himself. Now that they're with Dietrich and Milik, they're like, okay, you're not going to leave us here, right? Like, it's like they're really nervous about the situation, and understandably so. Like, these poor guys, like, were just like left in this wasteland. They're still going with Dietrich and Milik to try to find Solandra and Rupert. And Dietrich is another character that really grew on me because Dietrich is just not easily rattled. Like she just kind of goes along. She just goes with the flow and like has a good attitude about everything despite the mayhem going on around them. Now we have both groups. We have Solandra and Rupert and Roke, and then we also have Dietrich, Milik, Das and Spencer. They're going through the city, kind of moving towards each other over time, facing various obstacles and perils along the way. And eventually, both of the groups do cross paths. There's a big fight with a lot of monsters. We get to see the Jedi do what they do best. They end up saving the day, which I love to see that. And everyone's going to be okay now. However, they do end up deliberately collapsing the mines because that's where all the monsters are coming out of. And so it's like they have to put a stop to it. So Solandra's like, just collapse the mines. They end up having to like run for their lives to get out of there. And they do make it out. And so at the end of the book, Rillick, he does end up getting closer and closer to the zombie level of the sickness. And despite the fact that he screwed everybody over, they do still want to help him because they're like, we don't want you to like suffer a terrible fate, you know? They're researching, trying to find a cure. It turns out that he's like too far gone at this point, but there is like pretty good progress made on trying to find a cure for this disease to help other members of their species in the future. And it also turns out that the Republic is also going to continue to help them get a better energy source like once they're ready to transition to one. So we end the book with Rupert realizing that there's more to being a Jedi than just, you know, having a bunch of crazy stuff, crazy exciting stuff happen all the time. Like the real reason is because we're helping people, and sometimes when you're helping people, you end up having to do some crazy exciting stuff, but the ultimate goal is helping people, and she realizes that that's like where the true fulfillment is found. And y'all, I just love this book. Like, it's got a happy ending. We didn't lose any of our favorite characters at the end. We got to see Jedi do some cool stuff. We got to see a cool shield situation. I just loved it. Like, I just genuinely had so much fun while I was reading it. Overall, it was just a good read. Like, I just felt good after I read it. And that is what I like. It's really all I have to say. I'm really excited to listen to Battle of Jeddah next, who George Mann also wrote that one too. So I'm just excited because I feel like this book is really hitting on the feeling that I was hoping we'd get from High Republic. Once High Republic was first announced and it was talked about as being like the golden age of the Jedi, I definitely feel like I am seeing that in this book. So yeah, let me know in the comments what y'all thought about this one, if you had just as much fun with it as I did. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.